What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to One on One, a KC Sports Network podcast. I am here with my brother, Big Jeff Allen, 9-year NFL veteran and KC Chiefs Super Bowl champion. And we are here to bring you all things Chiefs football from a player's perspective. Boy, we got the win, and we got the win in KC Chiefs fashion, what we're used to. We're going to get into that. But Jeff, before we do, Cookie Society, we've been through the holidays now. We're coming up on the new year in January. Talk to me, brother. What are we working with over at Cookie Society? What we got coming up in the
future? New year, new you. So it's going to be a new menu as usual. Cinnamon rolls coming back. Got a little snickerdoodle, M&M. A lot of fun flavors. I know a lot of people have goals in the new year, a lot of resolutions, get back on track, working out, doing all those things. But we're launching a campaign called I Do Cardio for Cookies. So it's about balance, get the work in, but also reward yourself. So check out Cookie Society. We restock January 5th. Yeah. We'll be shipping again. So meet us at cookiesociety.com.
I'll tell you what, as someone who enjoys to work out, but also enjoys to eat, when I know I have like that present at the end, right? That goal, that sort of trophy that I get if I work hard, right? If I set something like a Chipotle or something like that, or a Cookie Society cookie, I'm working extra hard to get that. So it's worth it. It's worth it. Oh, that's great. All right. Make sure to check them out. Cookiesociety.com. They ship nationwide and the best cookies I got going. We're linemen. You can trust us. Big Jeff, I had a friend of mine talking about this Steelers game, and he talked about it like this. He was saying, hey, I couldn't watch the game, but I was able to check in every 3 or 4 minutes, right? So I couldn't sit down and watch it. I had a lot going on. And he said, every time I check in, Chiefs 7-0, Chiefs 14-0, Chiefs 21-0, Chiefs 30-3. Like every time he came back, it was a higher score. I was like, that's Chiefs football, right? Like that's what we've been so accustomed to over the past, Patrick Mahomes era. What is it now? 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years.
Where it's just like, touchdown, where it's like there's no stress. There's no stress by halftime. You're like, all right, this is done. What else are we doing today? Give me a recap, brother. I know our shows have already gone through the ins and outs. What'd you see?
It was dominant, all phases, offense, special teams, defense. And what I was most excited to see was just to see Patrick play without his main weapons. I know Tyreek got, cleared and he was able to play, but I was actually excited to see him and Travis not playing, just to see some other guys shine and see Patrick put that narrative to rest of he's only good because of, Tyreek and Travis. And he did that. I mean, Tyreek had 2 catches for 19 yards. And, guys like Ryan Pringle and freaking Williams and a host of other guys, they did the work. And he spread the ball out to 9 different receivers. Had a hell of a day, really efficient offensively. The offensive line did a heck of a job as usual. Defensively, I mean, they were all over the place. Roethlisberger couldn't breathe. Running game didn't really get going. Made some plays, got some turnovers. It was just a good game.
Yeah. And that's talking back to that Patrick Mahomes point. That's what separates the good from the great, right? So I don't agree with the narrative that Mahomes is just good because of the guys around him. Obviously, the guys around him help. But when you can make a 1-footed throw from 140-yard line all the way to the 10-yard line on the other side of the field, that doesn't matter who you are. That's amazing. You know what I mean? But when you do look at the resumes of like the Tom Brady's and the Peyton Mannings, right? I don't know how many years Peyton Manning was playing. He didn't have an offensive line in front of him. I mean, he had nobody, and they only gave up 9 sacks, right? Because he just was so aware of, where guys were coming from. Tom Brady, I can't tell you how many times I played him where we would look at their skill position on offense and be like, they have nobody. They have absolutely nobody. How is he doing this? But yet, continuing to get to AFC Championship games and Super Bowls with, not that many great players at the skill position. So that is one of those things that people are going to look at and say, okay, Pat Mahomes is great. And I agree. I disagree again with this sort of point, but they're going to look at those things. How does he do when he doesn't have this all pro cast around him? And like you said, this was a perfect example. I mean, he just got it done and got it done brilliantly.
I love to see it. We want those guys back because it makes the team even better. But they benefit from one another. So I'm tired of hearing some of these talking heads in the media, some of these guys on big networks, saying silly things like that. So I was happy to see this. And They didn't talk about it on Monday morning, but I'm going to talk about it. He did a hell of a
Yeah.
job, and let's just stop talking about that.
Yeah. I'm glad. Hey, I'm glad all those guys are healthy, by the way. Kels, Hill,
Yeah,
shout out to Rick Buckholter. I know he's doing a fantastic job. I can't imagine what this is like for those guys in the training room and the training staff, taking care of all these different cases and managing the logistics and making sure guys are healthy. Glad Travis is healthy. Saw him tweeting during the game. And,
yeah,
it's great for a guy like him. Travis is what, in his 9th year now?
yeah. Year 9, so he got a little
So
break here. He
he
needed
got
that.
a little break. He got a little break. His body's healed up. I mean, that's huge. So everything going well. Big win without some key players, like you said. That's huge. Let's talk about Andy Reid. We've talked about Andy Reid a number of times, but it's just he continues to. What is it that makes this guy so great? Because it just seems like, this is the second time. Again, we talk about the 2015 season. This is the second time in his tenure there where he's been able to turn around a team that, for all intents and purposes, was dead in the water.
Yeah,
That any other coaching staff, any other roster would have packed it in, and he's been able. And not just like kind of dead in the water, or floating, like dead,
yeah,
totally dead, and turn it around. And he's been able to do that again. And so, obviously you see the all the other years where he's just, blowing through teams, but these years are really special. And it makes you say, okay, what is it about this guy that makes him so great? And one story that I think about that I haven't brought up here before, but I think it highlights how his mind works. So when I first got to Kansas City from New York, I remember first couple practices during OTAs, and some of the guys had put their helmets down, right? So you get off of the field from practice, and you take your helmet off. A lot of times you put it down on the sideline or something like that, put it down over by the footballs, and go get a water break or something. Andy Reid would chew guys out. I remember him jumping on a guy because he put his helmet down and didn't keep it in his hands. Uh, and I remember thinking, that's a crazy rule. Like, why in the world would you care if a guy puts his helmet down? Come to find out, during his time in Philly, one of the guys had put their helmets down. A receiver, I believe, had run a route out of bounds and tripped over it and hurt himself and was out for a number of games. And so he had learned from that mistake in Philly, and that rule was implemented. And there was no wiggle room. You did not put your helmet down on the sidelines. That he was not going to let that happen again. Now, that is just one of lists of these different things that he did, that you would look at and say, that really seems like an arbitrary thing. I'm not sure why that's a rule. Like, it feels like you're just breaking balls. Like, there's nothing,
yeah,
there's nothing to this. But then you dig in and you see, like we've said over and over again, there's a method to everything he does. He's incredibly systematic. And again, this is just one of a number of those things that are in place because the man knows how to win. He knows how to win. So what do you got for me, Jeff? Can you think of any sort of story,
yeah. I
stuff like
mean,
that?
we talked about it. I mean, he even talks about it. There's a method to his madness, and it starts in training camp. It's one of those.
Right.
I will say it's the hardest training camp in the NFL. I haven't been to every single one, but I've had quite a few coaches while playing in the league, and it wasn't even close as far as the intensity, the number of reps, the number of periods, and the work that you got done. So I used to remember, like, man, this is ridiculous. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But sure enough, when you get to the season, you come out the gate, you're rolling. But not only that, you're able to sustain. You're able to
Right.
go. And when you get to the latter part of the season, that's when you start playing your best football. And we're seeing that now. And kind of like now, you see, younger guys had to play this week because of the COVID issue.
Mm.
Those guys, they don't get very, very many reps during the regular season.
Right.
But because we do so much work in training camp, those reps were done back in the summer, and they're able to pick up right where they left off. They have some football under their belt, and they're mentally learning during the year from some of the best coaches in the league. So,
Right.
Learning from him and just the small things like tucking in your shirt,
Right.
wearing white socks instead of black socks, just little meticulous things that may seem wild to you, when you're just getting into the system and you don't know anything about it. But the more you're in it, you see why these things are done, and everyone's on the same page.
I remember with my practice jersey, because I had this gigantic belly. So with my practice jersey, I had Alan Wright in the equipment room. I had him stitch a rubber band around the elastic in the bottom, so it
Mhm.
stayed sort of suctioned onto me because I remember he would jump guys for having that out, and I never figured out the reason. But that's another one of those things. You're right
Just
that
one.
he
It's
would.
just a thing.
That was it. That was it. Um, there were a couple other, another thing that he did in season that when I'm sort of reflecting on what makes Andy Reid great. Um, I remember being with teams and coaches where we'd have an opponent that wasn't very good. And the coach would go to the press conference and talk about the team and be like, give the same sort of thing that is stick that everybody gives, right? This team is great and yada, yada, yada. And we got to play hard and they do some good things. But then behind the scenes, they'd come to us in a team meeting or a D-line room or whatever and say, look, these guys are trash. Like we should absolutely kill these guys. Just awful. I never heard that once from Andy Reid in my 3 years in Kansas City. What he says to the media about, how we got to respect these guys and they have weapons and they've done a good job here and that's exactly what the players are getting. And so no team that we were going against, and it worked in the opposite too, right? We'd play these teams that, coaches would be like, listen, it was always like this with the Patriots. Listen, we got to be great. These guys are spectacular. You got to be perfect. Andy Reid was not like that with any team. Every team was the same. We got to respect them. We got to work hard. Here's what they're good at. And we got to work to win on Sunday. And it was like that every single week. You never got this team is trash. You never got this team is, superior. It was just, this is what they are. Let's work and get better. And that really, as a player, I can't tell you how many times a coach would say, this team isn't very good. And instantly, whether you want to or not, your mind starts to let up a little bit. Like, oh, I'm not, okay. We're good. We're good. I think I told the story about the Bills one year where they had a bunch of rookies, Eric Wood and Levitri and all these guys. And they were like, these guys are awful. You guys will be fine. And they kicked the crap out of us. Absolutely kicked the crap out of us. And so I think that's another thing, looking at the schedule and the way Andy, the trap games, you never hear that with Kansas City. Right, you never hear, this is a trap game because he doesn't play that. Every team is treated the same,
That's his character. I mean, that is him. And if I could chalk it up to one word to describe him, it's humble.
Right.
And that's the way he goes about things. He's very systematic, but he's also humble. And I think the reason behind it is, at the end of the day, he's going to treat everyone the same because at the end of the day, it's about us. It's about the Chiefs. It's about the team that he's coaching. And more times than not in the NFL, you beat yourself. Right. I don't care what anyone says. More times than not, you beat yourself because it comes down to 2-3 plays a game that decides it. If you're doing everything on your part, you're not really worried about the outside noise and you're preparing the way you should. You give yourself the best opportunity. So focus on yourself. Obviously, game plan for your team and you respect them and all that. But it's about you at the end of the day as a team. And he keeps the focus on the Kansas City Chiefs.
He is great with that. Before we continue, let's talk about our sponsors, Tickets for Less. Are you looking to score an unbeatable deal on Chiefs tickets? My friends at Tickets for Less have you covered. Locally owned for more than 17 years, ticketsforless.com has the best selection of Chiefs tickets for every game, all without the outrageous taxes or per ticket service fees you find on other sites. Plus, you can use our exclusive KCSN promo code from Tickets for Less to save even more. Use code KCSN21 at checkout to save big on any Chiefs order at ticketsforless.com. That's KCSN21. Make sure to check them out. One last thing on Andy Reid that I thought was interesting. So my last year there, and I'm not going to get into names, but there was a coach on staff who I thought, and maybe this was me just being, just thinking more of myself than I was, but I was like this. I think this coach is more detrimental than helpful. I don't think this coach is helping us very much. In fact, I think he's hurting us. And I think, we need to think about what we're doing here. And now I wasn't a prideful guy. I mean, I took this very seriously. This is something that I had sat on and waited on and finally was like, you know what, I just think this is the best for the team. So I'm going to go to that coach, the next level up and talk about this coach and see what he has to say. So I went to sort of my superior, right, and said, hey, this is what I see. I think there's some issues here. I think this is not very helpful. And I remember the coach saying, look, I understand what you're saying, but this is Andy Reid's guy. And he's always going to go to bat for him because he goes to bat for all his guys. And so I think it's, I remember him telling me it's one of these things you're gonna have to learn to deal with, because it's what it is. And I might have been frustrated, but at the same time, I can't tell you how many coaches in the NFL do not. And it's not just staff with Andy Reid; it's players too.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about how he would go to bat for any of his guys. I bet you if Le'Veon Bell was getting on a team and somebody went to ask Andy Reid about him, he would say, yeah, no, he would talk about how Le'Veon's a good player or whatever, to give him props or whatever. And so everything is going to crap over here right now. My son's in here.
It's all good. What's up, brother? That's his
everything
life.
Happens at once. But yeah, I just remember thinking, wow, that's incredible loyalty in an organization and in a business that doesn't respect loyalty whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It is cutthroat. And it's just amazing the way he goes about that. It's amazing the way he does that. And that allows whoever's on that staff to say, hey, let's sell out, because this guy's for us. I mean, this guy wants the best for us. Truly, like not just lip service, like he truly wants the best for us. And it is easy to go out and coach hard and play hard for a guy who's running a team like that. So I don't know if you had seen that as well, but just his loyalty to his staff and to his players is like nothing I've ever seen.
No, I've definitely seen it. I mean, there's been situations where maybe myself or different players going through a rough patch, and maybe, other coaches may make a change. But Coach Reid sticks with guys, and he'll have a conversation with you, and he'll tell you the things that you need to work on and what he wants to see. And I think you can respect that, because a lot of coaches will smile in your face and stab you in the back.
Yeah.
which is crazy, and that's majority, honestly. But he's rare. He's a rare coach in this league, and I really hope that the guys that have him now appreciate him and understand what he's all about. Even after you're done, I mean, this guy cares about you as a human being. Checks on you, he cares about what you're doing post football, and he's just a good dude. He's family first. And that's how he goes about it with the team. Obviously, it's a business. You have to make tough decisions. But the core of him is actually caring about his guys, coaches, and players.
I'm like, it's amazing that I'll still get a text once in a while from Andy Reid. Like, he checks in with his guys, and this is a head coach in the NFL with 100 million other things going on, and he checks in on his former players. I mean, it's just, there's nothing like that. I mean, it's just so. I think we can continue to come back to this, Jeff, because it's going to be something we always talk about when we're covering the Chiefs, is just what makes Andy Reid so special. But hopefully that brought our listeners into some of the points and traits that make him great. Okay, so recap the game. We talked about Andy Reid. Now, son, can you just go out there first? I'm live on this thing right now. Can you go out there and shut the door, and I'll be right out, please? 2 seconds. Can you shut the door for me?
You're good, man. Listen,
so
my son just was all over me. He's with the in-laws right now, so
Tucker, keep this in there.
Keep it in there. I got to pass right now. My son was just all over me like Spider-Man. We got him some new stuff for Christmas, and he's going crazy. I'm like, that was a bad idea to get him all these costumes. He's shooting webs at me, jumping off the couch, drop kicking me.
Right.
Just take a chill pill, man. Relax.
My middle guy, he does not care. We could be live going. He's if he don't get your attention, he is mad.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving forward now, talking about the Bengals. Sort of a weird season when you look at the ups and downs that they've had. They've beaten some good teams, played some good teams really close, and then lost to some bad teams. But they're 9-6. And last week against the Ravens, they had, what was it, 500 yards?
525.
Unbelievable. I mean, that's challenging. So KC's got to go into Cincinnati to get, play this game. And we have that number one spot right in front of us. And now this number one spot is huge. That week off is gigantic. We've talked about it over and over again on the show, how going into the playoffs, you at minimum, you want to have at least 1 or 2 home games. The best is if you can have that week off. And there's only one week this year. So that's in sight. Our team's got to be ready to go down to Cincinnati and play this game tight. How do you see this going, Big Jeff?
It's going to be tough. I think Cincinnati offensively, their skill positions, like they have a great running back, great quarterback. Their receiving core is great. They have a ton of explosive firepower. So it's going to be a challenge, but our defense has been stepping up all year.
Yeah.
All year. So I expect for the defense to, play well. I don't think they're going to, hold them to, 10 points.
Right.
But I think they'll be able to slow them enough to give our offense a chance to be who they are.
Right.
They'll get them the ball back. I think they'll force some turnovers, and I think Patrick is going to pick up right where he picked off against Pittsburgh.
Right.
He's going to have a great day. And honestly, like reflecting on this year's team, looking at what we see now, like my expectation this year was we're going to be great, but we're a lot better than I thought we'd be.
Right.
Just as a whole, this team is really solid. And I tweeted it a while ago, even when we were going through a rough patch, that this is a championship team just because of what I saw, the defense, what they were bringing, and knowing that the offense was going to catch up. So I'm excited. It's just another challenge. It's another week. We respect the team, but it's about the Chiefs, and I think they're going to do what they need to do. They're going to win this game and hopefully win out and get that #1 seed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, if the offense or the defense has been playing lights out since when the Giants are, they've been on the up and up and continue to get better. But even still, we've talked about this before. Even if they have an off day, if the offense is playing like the offense can play, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. I mean, there could be nobody on defense. It doesn't matter at all when the offense is playing the way they're capable of. And you're right. I mean, the way the ball's rolling, the momentum's rolling, Pat's going to pick right up where he left off with Pittsburgh. So good feeling about that, Jeff. Before we finish up, quick talk about the Pro Bowl. I thought it was really interesting to see Orlando Brown make it, not because he doesn't deserve it, but because there were a few times where he was spotlighted as maybe having trouble.
Yeah.
And you specifically talked about how getting used to playing with Pat Mahomes, it's not so much that Orlando Brown is having trouble, it's that where he's setting in his depth is normal, but he's playing with abnormal. And so he has to adjust a little bit, was able to fix that, gets voted into the Pro Bowl. So I know you and I just wanted to highlight that because he's had a spectacular year, and I think
he's had a good year. I think he's definitely had a good year. He's progressively gotten better as the year has gone on, and he deserves it. I mean, honestly, when I was younger, when I would listen to guys that made the Pro Bowl, they would always say, "Once you're in, you're in."
Yeah.
So Orlando's been there. He's obviously on that list, and he's going to be one of those guys that continues to go.
Right.
And it could be a popularity contest sometimes. You don't make it the years where you're supposed to, and then randomly you just make it.
Right.
And that's just how it goes. But most importantly, what matters the most is all pro.
All pro.
That's where we're going to see some of these guys like Joe Tooney, Creed Humphrey, maybe even Trey Smith may get a vote here and there. All those guys are deserving, but there are a lot of good football players in the National Football League. Cleveland has 2 great guards.
Right.
There's probably the best guard in football right now is probably in Indy. I know he didn't play, his greatest year, but he's still the best guard in football.
He's so good.
So it's tough at that guard position to make it in the Pro Bowl. I do think, however, Creed was definitely snubbed. Yeah. He was by far the best center in the league. It wasn't even close. And quite honestly, I knew he was going to be a good player, but he shocked the crap out of me. I didn't think he was going to be playing at a all-pro elite level, this soon. I thought he would eventually get to that, but to come out the gate, man, the sky's the limit for not only this guy, but this entire group.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I mean, it's really amazing when you're talking about, the 5 guys up front for the Chiefs offensive line. 4 of them could easily have been easily in the Pro Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And easily getting all Pro Bowls. And obviously, you got Orlando in there, but all those other guys, he just is deserving. And Creed is definitely a snub. I remember back right when I got into the league, and there was a few years that Haloti Ngata had the great defensive tackle hadn't gotten in. And I remember like, how the hell is he not in the Pro Bowl? And coach is saying exactly what you just said. Like, it's a popularity thing. And a lot of times it takes 1 or 2 years after you've put that first Pro Bowl season on camera for it to catch up and you get voted in. But then once you get voted in, you're in for good. And Haloti was in every year, after that first year he got in. So I would imagine Creed's going to be a first team All-Pro. And that's what people
I
care
mean,
about.
look at it. I mean, what was Mitchell Schwartz? What was he? 3-time, 4-time All-Pro. Never made a Pro Bowl in his career.
Right.
Like that tells you, like, I mean, it's great. I would have loved to make a Pro Bowl. I mean, we would all love to, and it's an awesome accolade. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, you got guys like that never make it. That were hell of football players in this league and deserving of it, and it just didn't happen. So,
now, what would they take? Is it broken down by right tackle? Remind me, right tackle, left tackle, or is it just tackle? And so you'd have 2 left tackles.
I think it's just tackle. I want
Yeah, I
to say
think that's what kills right tackles.
Yeah. I think it's definitely just tackle because it's always 4 left tackles.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
go in the Pro Bowl's 4 left tackles, and then they're arguing over who's going to play left tackle in the game,
Right.
as opposed to broken down. Same thing with guard. It's not right or left. It's just tackle, guard, center.
Right.
But if we broke it down by that, then we definitely have a little bit more.
Right. That's the problem. I remember being, not that I was ever good enough to make a Pro Bowl, but they would, Pro Bowl defensive linemen were always 4-3 guys who had 20 sacks.
Yep.
And then you'd have your JJ Watt or something like that, who also was having all those sacks. But like, we're playing in these 3-4 interior guys playing in
2
these
gappers.
3-4. Yeah, it's like we get no Pro Bowl votes. What the heck? Not that I deserved it though, but yeah. So I would imagine
if they had a Pro Bowl for run stoppers, you would have been there every single year.
The down and a half, the 1 down every
short
10,
yardage Pro Bowl.
it.
Like they should have made a special position for you, like the punt returner.
That's
Bring him in, Mike DeVito.
320 pounds, waddling in there, can't move.
That's funny.
Oh, Big Jeff, another good one, brother. Chiefs Kingdom, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week, hopefully after a good win against the Bengals and a lock in that #1 seed. Good luck, Chiefs, this weekend. Jeff, thanks, brother. We'll see you next week, everyone.
See you next week. Go Chiefs. We're going to win.